The Naismith Moment, a look at hardwood history, culture, and the Canadian game.
This week on the Naismith Moment, Canadian basketball royalty. CIA Bounce. If you have not heard of them, you should. I'm going to throw some names out at you. Andrew Wiggins, Anthony Bennett, Tristan Thompson, Khem Birch, Bhullar, Melvin Ejim, Ennis. These guys and a whole lot more have played in this AAU program based outside of Toronto. They've been doing it for over a decade and finally getting some acclaim with some NBA notoriety. I had the pleasure of speaking with Tony McIntyre, who's the co-founder of CIA Bounce. We spoke about the grassroots effort of this program. We talked about the NBA talent he's been developing. We talked about all of these guys because he's got five guys potentially in this upcoming 2014 NBA draft. We also talk about the rise of Canadian basketball, and he really does give the inside scoop because not only is he a coach, he's also father of Ennis. This is a really great interview. Enjoy.
So I'm here with Tony McIntyre, the founder of CIA Bounce. I mean, your program has been talked about. There's a lot of buzz from how you've grown in the last 10 years. And I've been reading so much about you. One of the words that came up was developing young Canadian players and the philosophy of having them have fun with the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I don't think that you could do anything in life if you don't have fun. And, you know, I think there's so much pressure already on kids just in general, you know, from outside sources and parents and, you know, people even in our program that, you know, the kids want to idolize and follow in their footsteps. So they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And for me, it's you really just got to let them have fun. Teach them, educate them, practice, get back in the gym, allow them to make mistakes, and you know, if it's not fun, you can't do this for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And so, obviously, there has to be a money component, you know, to get programs like this off the ground. And so, you actually had to go to a game show to help to get some funding.
Yeah, I think it was about 8 years ago we went on a Deal or No Deal, mm-hmm. and Mike went on it, and he. As a part of the program, and we donated the money back to the program, and that kind of gave us a real big kickstart in terms of putting a foundation in place where we could offset some of the costs financially for some parents that were struggling, and ultimately the kids, and then also being able to take kids over to Europe for international tournaments was a big basically starting point of our program when we first merged. Mm-hmm. So we were able to give them a cultural experience at the same time basketball and just show them how different basketball is over there, but also it gave us a lot of ideas as a program because we were so well received in France and the support and the fan base there. We sold out every game that we played in, and there was thousands of people lining up to get in games. So it's like, man, if we could be this popular over here, imagine what we could do, or imagine what we want to do back at home in Toronto.
It's a tremendous stepping stone for your program. And, you know, there's a lot of names, a lot of big names who have been associated with your program. In the NBA right now, there's Tristan Thompson and Anthony Bennett. Tristan, I mean, is very much the heart and soul of the senior men's national team here in Canada. And Anthony, of course, was the #1 pick in the draft. I mean, it must be very special for you to have those two guys in the NBA right now.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's you know, it's a fun thing when you could turn on the TV and see them there and know that they were just in your gym within a couple of years, and you know, they were kids that really worked real hard in the gym and were there every single day, and you couldn't give them enough. And you knew from early on that both of them were going to make it for the simple fact that they were gym rats, and they kept pulling information from you. It wasn't that you always had to force feed them or spoon feed them with information. They were coming with you, and they're saying, what about this, and how about this, or when can we work out, or can we get extra workouts and extra conditioning. And so, you know, they had an internal drive that you could just tell that the special kids have, and you know, they demand more of you than anybody else.
Speaking about special kids, this is a special time for you guys going into the NBA draft. You've got potentially 5 guys from the CIA Bounce program going into this draft. I just want to talk briefly about all 5 of them. I have been talking about these guys all year on hoopslounge.com, and I want to start with let's start with the local guy here in Montreal, Khem Birch. And a friend of mine who's been watching Khem play for a long time, he said to me, you know what, when Khem was younger, he wasn't, you know, the greatest basketball player. How have you seen him grow in the last few years through the program?
I mean, you know, I think when he first got, you know, at high school and then got out of high school. I think a lot of people just considered him to be a shot blocker, and I really think he took his game to another level in terms of his offensive. I always thought he could score, and he added his ball handling, and he'll block a shot, rebound, and get out on the break now. And I think that he's done a good job just adding a little bit at a time, to the point now that I think he's severely underrated. And I think anyone that picks him up, or hopefully he gets drafted, late first round or in the second round, he's gonna be an amazing piece of whatever they're doing, because I think he's going to continue to develop, and he's a humble kid, and he's hungry. He wants to get better.
Another guy under the radar, which makes absolutely no sense to me because he's 7'5", is Bhullar, who's been really working on his conditioning. I know he changed his nutrition program last year. I think he's going to be a solid NBA player. What do you think?
I think so too. I think it's a couple things with him. Is that he's not going to kill you with his athleticism, but he's got great hands for a 7'5" guy. He's, like you mentioned, he's done a great job in terms of getting his body more prepared to get up and down the court quicker. He's just got to find the right system. The right people are going to want him, and they're going to put him into a situation and a system that is going to match what his skill set is. And I think from a standpoint of outside of the NBA or for the NBA, but outside of basketball, just the marketing proponent of it, of being the first Indian-born player in the NBA is going to be huge for the NBA.
Absolutely, the global market.
Absolutely, and I know they're trying to, basketball without borders, and I know they opened a NBA office in India, so this is a huge time for them, and it would be huge for Sim to be the first one and lead the way, kind of like a Yao Ming type of situation.
Absolutely. And talking about on and off the court, Melvin Ejim, he's such a great basketball player, but not enough is said about how he is, a straight A All-American in the books, and how much he does in terms of work in the classroom and in his community. And it bothers me so much that people worry about his size, And I talk about him, and I talk about Charles Barkley. He was able to figure it out because he had the basketball IQ, he had the hops, and he has the jump shot. Do you think he's going to be a solid NBA player?
Absolutely. The kid, like you mentioned, just an ultimate competitor. Whether it be anything, it's not just basketball. It's everything he does. He challenges himself, comes from a great family, a great background. I like the whole situation that's brewing with Melvin, because he's always been challenged and he's always been underrated, and it's always put a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and allowed him to play a little bit harder. And I think this is going to be no different. When he gets into the NBA, I think he's going to be a guy. I mean, he's played all the guys that are in the NBA, and I think he's one of the leading rebounders to come out of the conference in a long time. Whether he's undersized or not, I think is irrelevant. It's how well you get your positioning, how well you go after loose balls, and how well, how physical you're willing to be. So I think, take the defensive end there, and I think he's going to be outstanding. And then, like you mentioned, he can shoot the ball, and he's had some scoring outbreaks this year where I think he had 48 and 18 one game, and it's a situation where he can shoot the ball better than anyone thinks. I saw him work out this summer down in Long Island, and he shot the ball extremely well. So I think, and especially from NBA 3, so I think that's really going to help him, and I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised through the workouts, and he's going to make people make some tough decisions.
And now, on a personal note, your son, Tyler Ennis, who was playing at Syracuse this year, I got to actually see him play firsthand this summer because Syracuse came to Montreal. They came on a Canadian tour. And the first thing that came to my mind while watching him was poise. Even then, at very early stages of his college career, he had that je ne sais quoi. He just knew when and where and how to do things. Very patient with his game at all times. Kind of like Lawrence Moten back in the day at Syracuse. Remember the way he played basketball. And one thing I mentioned to a few colleagues of mine is you remind me a lot of Jason Kidd. And I talked to Dwayne Watson, who's with TSN Radio in Toronto, and he said, it's really interesting you say that, Marc, because I've read that Tyler modeled his game after Jason Kidd. So I wanted to ask you if it was actually true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he liked Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Mike Bibby, Tony Parker. So those pass first type of point guards. And I think it really, you know, outside of it being my son, I think it takes a special person to want to make people around you better. And I think it's somewhat of a lost art when they say point guards. I think most people that are considered point guards are scoring guards. They would rather score the ball before they would like to throw a lob or have a nice assist or, you know, give the ball up on a fast break when they could go and take it themselves. It takes a special person to want to do that, and I think, you know, especially in the NBA, it's a dying art. And guys like Jason Kidd, Mike Bibby, Steve Nash, they're not really there anymore, obviously, and there's not very many of those pass first point guards. I think even for a team and chemistry on a team, I think it really adds value when you got a guy that is so willing, you know, capable scorer, can score whenever he wants, and he proved that at the under-19s, leading the tournament in scoring. But your chemistry with a team, guys will run the floor harder because they know they're going to get the ball. Guys will work harder because they know you're unselfish. Guys will give up the ball quicker because they know they're going to get it back. And I think it breeds within a team to allow that coach to really sit back and say, you know what, do your thing, because we know that you have the best interests of all the other players in mind as well as our team.
And the one, you know, player who's getting the most attention, obviously, is Andrew Wiggins, who's potentially the number 1, 2, 3 pick in the draft. I wanted to ask you, when was the moment where you realized that he was going to be an NBA star in your mind?
Probably grade 8.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just really special. He's a freak athlete. He's got that quiet demeanor about him that people kind of misconceive as not caring, but I think it's more of he's a deep thinker, and you know, he prepares himself mentally very well for all his challenges, but doesn't have to have that over flamboyant attitude or, you know, the type of mentality that a lot of number 1 players or top players have. And all the way through high school, you just knew whenever he needed to or wanted to turn it on, he could. And he didn't have to do it all the time because he trusts his teammates and he plays within a system. And I think this year was no different for him at Kansas when he was able to go into a system. You know, if anyone said that, hey, there's going to be a rookie that comes in, a freshman in the NCAA, is going to average 19 a game and, you know, 8 rebounds and 4 assists, I think we're pretty close to what his stats were at Kansas. People would say that's a pretty damn good basketball player, and I think the expectations were just unreasonable at a lot of points at the beginning of the season and through this season to think that the kid's going to score 30 a game. I don't think you're going to see that. But you also saw him really step it up when Joel Embiid went out with his injury. The offense changed, the structure changed, and Andrew changed. And I think that you know, he did a good job playing within what Bill Self wanted him to do. And you know, that's why I think he's only scratching the surface of what he's going to be capable of doing. When you have that kind of athleticism and you match it with how well he plays, and now you get into a professional environment where you're not worrying about going to class every day, and you can lift and you can work out and then prepare all year round. You're going to see him really escalate his game now, I think.
And speaking about escalating, obviously the Canadian basketball team is escalating, you know, to sky high level moments right now. And you have a documentary Vice is putting out about you guys this summer. Can you tell me a bit about that? It's
a documentary that we've actually been filming since even before CIA Bounce came together. So it was stuff that we put together on road trips when, you know, Tyler and Tristan Thompson and Anthony Bennett were in elementary school, and then when they get into grade 8, and then Andrew kind of steps in the picture, and it's just basically everything that has happened along the way, including, you know, trips to France and playing against Jonas Valanciunas and Lithuania at early ages, and you know, playing at St. Benedict's and playing at Huntington and playing at Finley. For all of those guys, there's behind-the-scenes footage. There's behind-the-scenes footage of, you know, stuff in between games in college, and then the AAU circuit through the EYBL for 2 or 3 years of some great teams that were put together, including like the Global Challenge team that had Anthony Bennett, Tyler X, Andrew Wiggins, Kevin Szabo, Olivier Hanlon, Sim Bhullar, Melvin Ejim. So you look at all of those and you say, it's really going to be kind of the history of what we've been doing, but also kind of leading into the the future of what Canada basketball is going to start to kind of grow their game around as well when these players get into the NBA and become good players.
Well, it's a very special time in Canadian basketball, and I wanted to thank you for being an integral part of it. And congratulations with the success of your players, your son, everyone else, and just keep going onward and keep pushing it forward.
No, I appreciate it, and I think it takes. Everyone always says that you guys have done a great job, but it takes everybody. It's been a real change in basketball in Canada that I've felt is that. Everyone's starting to get along, and everyone's not in it for themselves. It's more about, okay, these kids, and let's represent these kids. Let's celebrate our basketball players rather than bring them down and nitpick at all the things that could be wrong. Let's really promote our basketball players, and we were behind the Americans in that, and I think we've done a great job. Media outlets, you guys, television starting to pick up, and these players appreciate it, they need it, and it means something to them. So, it's also all the high school coaches, all the other, club team coaches that are agreeing to work together and create and provide a strong foundation for these players to support them and be able to succeed at the next level and grow. So I thank you guys.
Yeah, it's very much a team effort in our country. You can tell in the way these guys play, and everyone supports each other. So thank you very much, Tony.
No problem. Thank you very much.